Welcome everyone to the Miss Art World podcast. I'm Catherine with my co-host Samuel.
What is up, Art World?
And today we have a very special guest. Her name is H.C. Wynn. Is it Wynn?
Quinn.
Wynn.
Actually, you might want to redo that because the pronouns are they, them. So I'm like non-binary.
Okay. Let me restart that. Welcome everyone to, I almost forgot our podcast name.
Why don't you just leave it anyways? Because that would be a good thing to
talk about.
Talk about, yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
Because you said you're non-binary, right?
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means that I am not gender conforming on like the binary kind of like scale. So like I neither identify as male or female.
So then what would you say you identify as?
As non-binary.
Okay.
So there's like gray spaces in between, and it's like being able to kind of be fluid between these like two polarities and kind of create what it is that you want to identify as.
Okay.
HC, would you think that most people are non-binary and we just have been told like, hey, you're a female, you need to act in this certain way? Or do you think there's certain people that are non-binary and there's certain people that are, female and male?
Well, I think it's just like a matter of like, your own gender preference, because again, it is identity and how you choose to kind of identify as, and like even these like polarities and these constructs of like male or female are just human created constructs. It's like it's not actually an actual thing in nature besides like our biology, but that's just a matter of like we can choose how to identify, and there is power in kind of not choosing between the two, because it's about creating narratives. And if you think about like why there are these two different gender identities, is to impose like a narrative and understanding of like how to approach and like view this certain person and their identity, and just it's just like putting people in boxes and trying to understand them.
Mm-hmm. And this was something that we had talked about for the MX Art World New York, which we are announcing you as the new queen that's coming up. And so the MX was important for you because you're non-binary, to represent not the Miss, which is very female, but be the non-binary within your title. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the it's like MX or mix. Like even I'm like, because this is like relatively new to me, because like I just recently, I guess, came out and just still exploring, still understanding. And so I think I'm still having a little more fluidity with it, but I do like the mix, and kind of like I've always known in a way that like I was always gender neutral. Like if you look at my own practice, it's like this character of like completely void of like identity or any type of like signifiers, and kind of like playing this like idea of like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna build my own story and like kind of engage you in that way where like there's ambiguity and kind of playing with that gray space. And so that's why I like this, especially kind of like with like the whole project for Miss Art World, kind of breaking down these structures of like what pageantry is, what beauty is, and like you assume like beauty is like associated with being like hyper feminine if you look at like beauty pageant culture, and just kind of questioning, it's like these don't have to be the norms.
And and they shouldn't be the norms, really. Yeah. We should have a broader idea of what beauty is, not
like it's like having openness to explore and be like, hey, I can do whatever the hell I want.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about the Miss Art World concept, is it is allowing, at least it allowed me to explore and be free with this idea of beauty, whereas when I was doing pageantry, it was like, no, you have to look this way, you have to act this way. And now we are turning the tables on this whole idea of not just pageantry, but beauty in its entirety.
Or just like kind of being like a femme coded body. And that's like kind of where like this came from for me. Cause like, you know, I was thinking about like, oh, like what made me do this kind of like shift in identity? It's like I realized a lot of my own personal traumas just came from being like a femme coded body, where like, you know, when you are born a woman, you are always told like how to behave, what to do, like how to look. And so like you already have these like constructs and like narratives imposed on you, and just like kind of breaking away from that and having that freedom. It's like I can build my own story, my own narratives. And like I don't need someone telling me like how to like, you know, perform.
What is the MX? I know you're gonna say non-binary, but is M like short for something, MX, or is that just?
I think it's kind of like a negation, because like if you think of like Mr. is MR and like Miss or Mrs. is like the RS or MIS.
Oh,
so like
okay.
the X is kind of like the crossing out. Like that's how I view it.
That's actually really, that does make sense. That makes perfect sense.
But it's like I think it's like, is it MX? Is it mix? I think it's mix. That's how it's pronounced.
Oh, it is. Okay. See, so instead of saying MX, it should be mix art
Mix.
world.
Because I think that's like a lot smoother to say as opposed to like MX.
I'm
You sound
learning
like a
so much.
rapper almost. Yo, yo,
Okay,
yo, it's
cool.
MX.
That's how I feel sometimes, like saying HC. It's like, hey, like what if I started like MC? I'll be like MCHC.
Yeah. MCHC in the house. And then you go,
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm kind of thinking about, like with this new role as like, you know, mixed art world. It's like, oh, like maybe I should do some like MCing gigs, like MCHC in the house here.
That would be awesome. Get you like really cool headphones so you look legitimate.
It was funny because
Interest-
like, so I was actually doing that photo shoot with Angelica, and like I noticed like, oh wait, all of these images are like kind of ethereal looking. It's like maybe like if I was like some sort of musician, I'd be like an ethereal DJ rapper kind of mix.
And we should maybe talk about that. So when you decided to jump in, you got with a photographer, and then talk us through the concept of your photo shoot, because I know that was important to you too.
So it was actually a really interesting photo shoot because the photographer Angelica is also non-binary, and I figured they would be like the perfect person to kind of do these like, you know, shots for like kind of the debut, because they're really good with like makeup and like kind of doing these like very playful like full body paints, or even just like these intricate fun kind of like designs too. And they had this like really interesting set of like colored photographs that I love, that are very textural and like very moody, um and I just kind of loved like their aesthetic of like just, you know, photography and kind of playing with like that kind of gender dynamic where like it is ambiguous. And so I trusted them with like doing my makeup, kind of like playing with like the different outfits I had. And this is probably like the first time I did like a photo shoot completely topless, like, and I was like surprised. I was like totally comfortable in it. And I was like, okay, cool. And it was fun because it's just a matter of like being playful, and that's what I enjoyed about it. It's like it wasn't too much about like, oh yeah, we gotta look like pretty and like beautiful. It's like, no, like let's just like make things fucking weird, and like let's do like these fun makeup looks, and it's like let's make it really alien. Like I want to feel like I'm an alien. It's fun. Like the photo that I chose, it's like kind of the birth of Venus almost out of the water, all
Mhm.
blue.
That's cool.
And it's like part of it's fun because it's like, you know, there are these like kind of rich like textures, colors, and like narratives that are like kind of like built into like the photographs of like, you know, who is this person, like what is this look, where are they from, like you have like all these questions. And I think that's the fun part. It's like, oh yeah, like we're kind of building our own world, our own narrative, where it's like, what is the context for this type of look, this person's like, wait, this can be like an everyday look too.
Mhm.
And are you going to try to incorporate your art into the MX or mix art world? Like, because Katie was saying that you do a lot of black and white
Mhm.
imagery, and then I saw like you had the dunce hat on your Instagram a little bit. Like, are you going to try to incorporate that as well?
Yes, actually, I've had some ideas because like I'm really into it was kind of interesting, like psychoanalysis. And so it's like I have all these different characters that I perform as, and like the dunce obviously is like the reductive character where there is like no identity, and they're all about like breaking structure, questioning like social norms and interactions. And then I'm like, I think having like an like adding on like the mixed art world character, or like kind of, I guess, is it a character, is it me, like these are the things like I think about all the time. It's like, am I performing or is this just me? But anyways, having this like, I guess, other character like who is on the other extremity of like, oh, like this could be access maximalism, like I can do whatever I want, be everything. And so like kind of having like these dual characters is interesting. And then having myself as, I guess, myself. I've been thinking about kind of this idea of like thirds where like there are polar opposites and like kind of a middle mediator. And from like what Katie has known from like my work in grad school, like I did a lot of these like dunces, was it the round table, and I kind of like this like self dialogue where these are the characters that I am, and I'm just kind of in dialogue with myself and just kind of bringing in these like, I guess, these newer characters like the dunce and like mixed art world. Like I've been thinking about incorporating them into like my own world and kind of doing a video series where I'm just basically talking to myself.
It's interesting that you will play yourself and different characters who are like, I think that whole concept is really fascinating, and I am excited to see how what you end up coming up with, because it's a question that I have for myself, like, is me as Miss Art World, am I a character or am I myself? And for me, it's always been, I am not a character, but at times I feel like a character. So it's just, it's interesting to, you're going to take a deep dive into this, and I'm excited to learn from how you experience it.
Well, it's like I don't want to think that like they're characters because I feel like as a root that they truly are me, but like certain aspects of me to like the extreme. So like the dunce is me to the extreme on like, I guess, in a reductive way that like likes chaos and breaking everything down, where like mixed art world is probably on the other end where it's like, hey, let's like try to build things, like make new like structures and make new ideas and narratives. And so this is like a really interesting dynamic between, I guess, it's two different sides of me.
And then do you only do black and white?
Not anymore.
Oh, really?
Now that we're
Color is
introducing some new characters. I mean, like this is like even in my own life. Like I used to wear all black, but now I'm just like explosion of color. So
Do
I
you
think
think
there's
it's
gonna be some
because
major shifts.
do you feel like it's because before you were identified as these boxes that people were telling you about, like before you come out as MX, you were in either a black box or a white box, and you've mixed the two, and now that you have this explosion of color, it's because you've come out at the same time. You think
Yeah,
that has any correlation with it?
I think so. And I think like a lot of this is like correlated like with my own like gender identity. Like I've never thought about it. Like I've always been curious as like where this character of the dunce came from. And you know, ultimately in the end it was like about my own confusion of my identity. And so to introduce this like new character, it's exploring the other end and fully understanding it now. And so I think it's interesting. I think it's yeah, like you're pretty spot on with that basically.
I'll send you my bill.
Thank you for figuring it out in like a matter of like minutes while it took me like, you know, my whole life.
So what this is going to be a really kind of weird like child question, but like do you, I'm assuming before you said you like black, like you were attracted to black, do you have like a new favorite color that you kind of go to or you like more, or
Yes, yes.
What is it?
Blue. I've like been having this like affinity for the color blue. And I don't know if you've ever read Rebecca Solnit's book. I think it's Rebecca Solnit. Is it The Field Guide of Getting Lost? And she talks about how blue is this like deep color of longing, of like horizons that you'll never arrive at, but it's about exploring and getting lost. And maybe that's why I'm like so attracted to the color blue. Because like if you think about like looking at the sky, it's endless, or like looking out
Mhm.
to like the ocean, the sea, like it's endless. And it's like there is a longing for like, I guess, a resolution, and maybe that's actually the main color that I'm using for my debut. So there is I guess some reason as to why I chose blue. And it's also like water too. It's like water's been like a huge theme this year for me, where it's like always being fluid and kind of like moving, going with the flow. And so yeah, blue.
Sounds good.
I
So
had
then,
no idea where you were going with that question. I was like, a childlike question that Samuel's going to ask. It could go
well, it's like,
the
what's
range.
your favorite? Basically, like, what's your favorite color? So you don't get asked that as an adult, unless it's a
But I
little
mean,
kid
it's
that.
like if you think about it, it's like, why do we have our favorite colors? Like, I mean, what's your favorite color and why?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's not going to be as poetic as what you just told us. I like pink. It's pretty.
I like blue, and I also like pink. What I'm attracted to right now, like bright colors, because I normally wear a lot of like grays for some reason. I don't know
Well, you
why.
both are in like black right now. What's happening here?
Because
Well,
I'm at
yeah,
work.
but like my shoes, I have these like really bright pink shoes that I like to wear, or like I have these bright yellow ones that I like to wear too. So like that's the one part of my clothing that I kind of go crazy with, is my shoes, which is, I think, fun.
But why not everything else?
I
Just
don't know.
curious.
I I like maybe to look slimming, so I choose darker colors. With the dunce, have you gone? Because Katie was saying that you did like performance pieces. Have you
Mhm.
gone out and did performance pieces with in that dunce outfit? That's because you have it where
Yeah.
I've seen a couple where it's like checkered, like a
Yeah.
full body checkered. Is that just like a bodysuit that you made yourself, or were you able to buy something that
I
looked like
bought it
that?
online, and for me, just like for safety reasons, like I have to be in a controlled environment and do a performance with this suit on, only because of visibility. Like I could barely see out of it, so I wouldn't go out in the streets with it. Just purely for that reasons. Like I can't see through it.
Okay.
So if I do bring this character back to anything, it's probably going to be in very controlled projects, like, in a video or a photo shoot or something.
Was the gender neutral aspect of the dunce something that you had thought about in grad school?
Yeah, well, like it all came from like just kind of voiding any type of identity signifier, like not only just gender, but like even like me being like, an Asian person too. And just like this whole idea of like, why can't we just read things for like what they are, as opposed to always like, wait, there's this type of signifier on them. Like this is like their story. It's like immediately, like if they know like I'm an Asian person and I'm making like certain work, it's like, oh yeah, this has got to do something with like being Asian or something. It's like, no, it's like I want to look at like concepts like for what they are, as opposed to these like preconceived, concepts and
Mhm.
notions.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go on a more spiritual level, not just a surface value where people can look at you and then put you in those like boxes where they're, oh, you're a white man, or you're an Asian female, but you want to
Yeah.
go more deeper than that with your art. Are you going to, um, what, like, not are you going to, did you have any really unique performances that you've done with that dance outfit?
I think like a lot of it too, it's like a lot of like power play and power dynamics. It's like, the dunce is meant to be an instigator, kind of people think that they have control over a situation, but the dunce is kind of like using them as puppets. And that's like what I did with like a few of my I guess performances, where I will set up scenarios. It's like, okay, these are the rules, but like there is kind of free form, free participation. But ultimately in the end, it's like it's very controlled. So it's like this idea of like faux free will. And that's like something that I do like playing a lot with a lot of my work. It's just kind of exploring power dynamics and like giving people like this idea that like they do have power when they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like shifting again. It's like, when there is something like when there is like, I guess, a narrative or like some sort of preconceived notion placed on you, like you are kind of forced to be boxed in like this, where like this is kind of like the opposite effect with this character that is voiding that completely, but at the same time, like they're flipping it back onto you.
What got you into art? Like, what was there anything that kind of pulled you into the art world, or have you just always been fascinated by art?
I feel like that's a really difficult question because like so many facets of the art world. I kind of like, oh my God, like I don't even know where to start with this. It's kind of like that idea where you can do whatever the hell you want. That art is such like a safe space where you can like explore these ideas knowing that it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're able to do it. It's like knowing that like, because I am wearing this dunce suit and performing as the dunce, like it's perfectly fine in the art world. But if I did in the real world, like people would be like, this person's fucking crazy.
Lock them
Like,
up.
what is happening here?
Mm-hmm.
Or me just like recording videos of me just talking to myself. It's like, this is not okay.
Yeah, the
So it's
art
like,
definitely gives you a kind of a get out of jail free card with being
just be
able
as
to
weird as
express
you
yourself.
can, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like having that freedom, knowing it's like, oh yeah, it's like anything goes. As long as you don't hurt anyone. That's just like my baseline. Like, just don't hurt anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Before you got into grad school, what kind of art were you doing before?
I was doing, it's funny, I was a painter, but painting in the loosest sense, where like I was questioning what painting is. So it's like the same kind of thought of like where the dunce comes from, where like you kind of question structures. And like a lot of my practice was like, questioning the structure of like what painting is. And so I made like very sculptural paintings, but like for me, like that wasn't doing it because became too much about the material. And it wasn't getting to the root of like what I wanted to explore. And I think the dunce kind of came out of like, I don't even know where the dunce came from. I think it just had like this strong like a reaction where I wanted to buy a suit and put on checkered boards on my own body, because I was doing checkered boards on my paintings. Because it's kind of the checkerboard, I kind of got the idea from like if you ever use like Photoshop and you like void an image, you just get like a checkerboard grid. It's like a void of an image.
Mm-hmm. So then you started with paint, and now you're doing performance. Do you ever think about going back to paint at all, or?
I've tried. I've like started and I was like, this is like, it just doesn't do it for me anymore. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I like kind of like, I do like performance because it becomes more personal in that sense. I think it's like more aligned to what it is I'm exploring, which ultimately in the end is like identity.
It's
Can
been
you
really
teach?
nice to see your progression because it's similar to mine, where I went into grad school as a painter and then left completely different doing weird stuff. And so I feel like your journey is very similar to my own, just in a completely different way. Well, and I wanted to ask you, do you have any plans, future plans with your title moving forward? Are you going to go out with the sash and costuming?
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking for your future adventures as
I think like right now it's like I'm kind of loving the fact that like I can kind of use it as an excuse just to be like extra in like all ways, like wherever the hell I want, like just look crazy, but like wear the stash and people are like, all right, that's fine, that's acceptable. And just like go to events, and like I do have like plans on going to like a lot of like art events and stuff. As mixed art world, and just like use it as an excuse to like, you know, be extra. And I'm kind of loving that. Like I just want to be extra with like no reason for it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's that license to do whatever you want type of thing.
Exactly.
Mhm.
As long as I don't get arrested, who knows like what is gonna like become of me.
Is there any kind of nervousness that you're feeling with the announcement, or do you think it's going to be all positive reactions?
I don't know. It's like I am having like a little bit of anxiety about it, only because it's I think it's more personal, where I'm like, is this gonna be like a character as myself? Is it going to be an actual character? And for me, it's just like trying to negotiate that space. Is like, am I going to perform as like reality? Am I going to create like a fictive space? Like, how am I going to teeter between the two of this? It's like I just don't know like how this character is going to pan out, and like I honestly won't be able to answer that until like I'm out as mixed art world. So I think it's just a matter right now, just like defining what exactly this character is.
Because people will ask you about it, and that's probably one of my biggest struggles, is having learned it as I went to then be able to
Mhm.
inform people of what exactly the concept is all about.
Well, like maybe that's like the magic of the project, that it doesn't need to be defined, and that's exactly what it's trying to do. It's like there is a gray space. Like, is it a reality? Is it performance? Like, is it some sort of theatricality? Um, it could be both. Why not?
Mhm. And what's I find so interesting is my experience will be different than your experience. That will be different than Claire's experience. And so we're all doing different things under the same umbrella, but we're all experiencing it and going to just, it's going to be different for each of us. And
Hmm.
I'm excited to see how that comes out too.
Which I think it's like really great how this project is like um, moving in that type of direction, which is completely the opposite of like traditional beauty pageants, where it's like everyone has to be like homogenous. You have to look a certain way, all perform the same way. Where this is like we're all going to have very vastly different experiences, and that's like the magic of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you get to do it for as long as you want. Like I plan to be buried with my sash because why not? There's no like age requirement. There's no you have to act ladylike. You can't be photographed drinking alcohol, which is totally something that
Wait,
happens.
that's a rule?
That's a rule in pageantry. You could not be photographed having alcohol in your
That's
hands. No
crazy.
smoking, no cigarettes, nothing. Um,
So now I'm
and
going to do the opposite. I'm going to do all of these things. Like,
Yeah.
is there like a list of
AT's gonna
rules?
have
Like,
a
give me a
drink
list
and a
of rules.
cigarette.
I'm going to do all the drugs.
all in one.
All in one photo.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know.
That kind of sounds like a cool photo if you were had just them all kind of lined up like you were just about to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, do you have like one of these contracts? Like, I'm
I
gonna have to
do,
look at
yeah.
this.
I can send it to
Okay.
you. Mm-hmm.
Are you able to do your art um, as you work? Because I don't know what you do for work. Are you in the art space or do you do something entirely different as like your
Well, like,
normal 9 to 5 job?
well, I've been on like a long hiatus since grad school, and like I'm starting to pick things back up now. And I think like this project itself is like a great way to just like incorporate in like my own life. And so I'm trying to find ways to like bring back my practice so that it's kind of seamless in that way. And that's why I like performance.
Mhm.
And so there's like a lot of things I'm doing like in terms of work and like personal projects that I feel like I can bring in mixed art world just to be in these spaces. So like I'm curating an exhibition. And it's like, you know, I'm going to show up to my own exhibition that I'm curating. as this character, like show up in the events. And so yeah, like I think it's just I think it's easier to incorporate this type of practice for me, and like I'm still trying to like figure out like what works best for like my personal life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to do art the older you get, especially if you gotta have a job, you gotta pay rent, you gotta feed yourself, and then like balancing, like even Katie has a child now, so now she's got to balance that and try to do art at the
Well,
same time.
Katie's a
So you only have like,
superwoman. I don't know how Katie does it. Like,
It's hard.
your child
Um,
becomes your art.
yeah, he's gonna be totally in performances, and I'm gonna embarrass the heck out of him when he's 18. But
Oh my god.
no, it's hard. I think in grad school, I really appreciated just time to make art.
Hmm.
And now when you jump into the real world, and especially trying to find an art job, if that's the route you want to go, and then do your own art practice and not being burnt out at both ends, it's hard.
No one ever told you like being an artist. It's like you're doing more than just working a normal job. It's like it becomes your life. Like you
Hmm.
get no rest.
Well, and you're in New York pretty much. And
Hmm.
so that's makes it really nice to have so many opportunities there, versus being in, I don't know, Texas. Um,
I think
where
Texas has a fair
does
like
it? Okay.
speed. Like you need like a
Or
more
go
obscure
like
like state like
Alaska
Idaho.
okay,
or Idaho.
Idaho or Alaska that might not appreciate the type of work that we do at the same type of level. Um,
Hmm.
so
Or maybe they will. Like people love a good spectacle.
Mhm.
that's true.
Well, I think people like performance pieces because they feel like they're a part of it. So like even if you don't know what's going on and you're like, this is weird, you're still gonna talk about it because like it's something that you are a part of. When like a lot of like pictures, they have to either call to you or you have to like it. But if you go through a museum, you're looking at all these different art, you're only going to talk about the one you liked. With performance pieces, if you didn't like it or did like it, it doesn't matter. You're still going to talk about that art. And it's, I
I think
think, of
like
more.
yeah, like and just to kind of jump on to like what you're saying, it's like I think like performance too, like it's a little more invasive in your space. Like you are kind of forced to confront it, like where at least with a painting it's a little more passive, and like you have to force yourself to engage with it. Where at least with performance, it's like it's there, it's happening in front of you, like you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
HC, if people are trying to find you, where would you send them?
Like me personally as a human, or like on
Oh,
like
don't give
your
us your
internet.
address. Your,
I'm located on this street. I sleep at these
you're
hours.
not promoting stalkers. If they were trying to find your like Instagram or website, where would you want people to reach out to
Katie,
you if they?
Katie's trying to get you to do plugs.
Yeah, yes.
There we
Plug
go. We got
yourself,
plugs.
please, before we wrap this
Plug
up.
myself in. Okay, so I don't like. Would it be easier just like put like a little thing up? Okay. Anyways, I think you just like look my name up, HC Huynh, HUYNH. I think I'm only HC Huynh prominently on the internet. But my website it's hcthuynh.com, or Instagram, I believe it's HC_HUYNH. Maybe in the editing, you can just like toss it in there. I'm just saying this because like I'm a bad auditory person. If someone says something to me, it's like in one ear out the other. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm very visual, gotta see the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I think you can pretty much find me on like Instagram. Just type in HC when I should show up.
Thank you so much for being on here and for joining the Miss Art World family, because I'm excited to see it grow in completely different ways that are different than my own perspective on the world. And for those of you who want to find out more about Miss Art World, we have a website, missartworld.org now, that will have all of our queens listed and all of their information. You can find us on Instagram at Miss Art World. You can find us on YouTube if you want to see us all talking to each other out of little boxes. Visit the Miss Art World channel on YouTube. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you, HC, for joining us. Thank you, Samuel, as always, for your wonderful questions. Getting at the heart of things.
I do appreciate the color question, though. Like, I was very happy you asked that.
Well, good. I'm glad.
Well, thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Katie. Bye.